Welcome to Yoga Biz Camp with myself, Michael J. I'm a yoga business coach with 25 plus years of experience as a creative, a total tech geek, and a yoga business owner. Welcome to Yoga Biz Camp. I am with a very good friend of mine, Ingrid Thompson, who is also a certified Mindbody Business Consultant as well. So welcome, Ingrid.
Hello, Michael. Hello, everyone. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me here.
Good to be with you. I am going to just read your bio out, Ingrid, and you can cringe while it's always a weird thing.
It is always a bit strange, isn't it? Oh, dear.
Ingrid Thompson. Ingrid believes that every business owner deserves to fully understand how money works in their business. Understanding business finances and how money works is rarely taught as part of the curriculum and professional training for health and well-being professionals. Over time, people develop the skills and expertise in their chosen field. As health professionals, they reach a stage where they can look at a client and just know what's happening in their body. So true. Ingrid believes that every business owner can come to understand the financial aspects of business, and it is easier and takes less time than most people believe. Ingrid shows business owners ways to learn about and understand money and finance using simple language as she draws on 30 plus years of working with and explaining the financial aspects of business to a broad range of people in business. When you understand how money works, your life changes completely and forever. Yay, Ingrid. So Ingrid is, I have so much respect for you, Ingrid. We very much connect on many levels. But what I love about you is that anytime I've been on one of your webinars or in anything, you care so deeply about people's finances and how they feel around finances. And care so much that I've seen tears well up in your eyes when somebody talks about their successes around finances. So I want to know a little bit about how that came about. Like what, in your upbringing, why was money and finances, why did that become important to you? Like what was the kind of the foundation?
Michael, thank you for your comment. And I could just do that right now, actually. It's such an emotional subject for so many people. And I think it's that last sentence that when you understand how money works, it changes your life completely and forever, because you cannot unlearn it. Like once you understand money, you can't not understand money. I mean, it comes and goes, but once you get how it works. And I think, honestly, I've really thought about that first question that you said, what is it about my upbringing and why finance became important to me? So we immigrated as 10-pound tourists from the UK to Australia in the 60s. And, my dad started work the next day. So we landed in February, which is blistering hot in Australia, from a freezing cold UK on a Sunday morning. And my dad was at work at 6 o'clock on the Monday morning and starting his new job. I think that in itself goes to where the upbringing and where finance and where, the work ethic and the money that goes with that sort of sits in and around just that, even that part of the story. But, it was in those days, it was cash, and my mum had jars. She had the money to pay the rent, the money to pay the mortgage when we shifted from rent to mortgage, the money to pay for the nice things, because, we did the things that kids did. We did ballet and we did yoga in those days. And we, went to the ballet and we went to the theatre because things were important. So I saw money distributed across how we lived. We had holidays. We always had holidays. So, mum managed the money. Dad came home. He had his pocket money. And then when I was my mum gave us pocket money as well as a teenager. And so I learned to manage my own money, the little things that I needed to buy for myself. And then when I started work, my mum sent me to a workshop. It was a one-day workshop for women. And I honestly don't remember what it was called, but it was run by an amazing woman called Virginia Dowd. I'll never forget that woman's name. And she talked about two things on that day that just made such an impact to me. And one of them was the concept of compound interest. So if you save money early, it compounds, and it's this magic thing. It just keeps on growing on itself. And that's a discussion for another time, but compound interest is a magic thing. The other thing she talked about was, do not wait for Prince Charming to come along on a white stallion, because chances are he'll be in a clapped out E.H. Holden, and that will be on hire purchase, and you will be somehow caught up in the debt. And so, I remember, and a clapped out E.H. Holden.
How old were you?
Imagine, I was probably about 18 or 19 at the time. So it was that very impressionable time. And one of the other things I've come to realize, Michael, as part of that story, is that my mum's sister also came to Australia, and she didn't have the same family that we had. Her husband was abusive, and she eventually left him. And so I spent my teens watching a woman who was financially vulnerable. And I hadn't realized until quite recently that that is part of my story as well, is I saw what happened when somebody didn't have money and became dependent on others to look after them. So I think, all of that, and I've always been good with money. And yeah, I think money, having your own independence is so important. And it's not difficult. I think, I'm good at maths, but I studied accounting and I've worked in business. And I've explained concepts to people all my life. I've always been good at explaining things. And when people get it, it's just magic. And so, yeah, I think I'm starting to answer your next questions. But yeah, so that's why it's important to me, because it's given me the confidence that I am safe. And I think that's the biggest thing, that I can make my own choices, and that I, as a woman, as an individual, will always be financially safe.
Yeah. And we're both in the kind of health and wellness field. And, I know you work with a lot of Pilates studios and yoga studios and dentists. And so how did you get into the health and finances for the health and wellness field?
It sort of happened, I think. And it happened because I see people in health and allied health and yoga, Pilates, well-being as absolutely dedicated to taking care of their clients. And they come to it with such a level of care, responsibility, of wanting to truly help and make a difference in their lives. But nowhere, as it said in my bio, nowhere in their skills training does it teach them how to run a business. Yeah. And so I feel if I can contribute to the next level of care for those people, because you can continue to take care of your yoga clients, you can continue to take care of your Pilates clients if your business is financially viable. Yeah. If you're constantly worried about how things are going to work out, then how can you do for your clients? Yeah. And so I feel like I'm that piece of that puzzle that can help them. And yeah, I think health and wellbeing people, I was just drawn to it because I believe so much in how much we can improve people's lives through health and well-being.
Yeah, and I've talked about this on other podcast episodes, that people in our industry, in the yoga, the Pilates world, they don't go into it originally, usually, not always, but usually they don't go into it with a business mindset. They go into it with wanting to serve. And then they get into it, and then, okay, they've got to pay teachers, and then they've got rent, and they've got all the overhead that comes with owning a business. So I think you're really onto something, because I was that person when I opened my yoga studio. I had it for 13 years, and it took me a while to realize that it was a business. And I had the mentality originally of just paying myself enough to pay my mortgage. And, it wasn't a profit mentality at all. So you see that in your field as well, with the health and wellness field?
Absolutely. And it's different in some parts of the industry as well. I think the ones that come into it with more of a business mindset to start with, they actually do start to look for profit in the early stages. And,
Yeah.
I want to say right now, profit is not a dirty word. Like there's a song from the 80s about ego is not a dirty word, but profit's not, because the things we can do with profit are phenomenal. The impact we can have with the profits in a business. So, and it doesn't necessarily mean making loads of profit to the point of exploiting your clients. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about having enough money to keep your equipment up to date, to be able to go on professional training, to be able to hire another team member when you need it, to be able to serve in the community, to be able to make a contribution. I have a dental client who spends a day a month working in other environments where he doesn't get paid, and he can afford to do that because he's making profits in his business. And we see eye surgeons going and working in other countries because they're making the money in the other months of the year. So, I think how we use that profit and what we see profit used for is very important. But the basic principles of business are actually easier for most people to understand than they think. And truly, if you know all the bones and muscles of the body and you understand how the body works, let me tell you, finance is a breeze.
Finance is easier than anatomy.
That should be our tagline, Michael, wouldn't it? Finance is way easier than anatomy.
We've got a podcast. We've got a name for the podcast.
But truly, if you can understand all the intricacies that go on in the human body, and, I really believe when I work with some health professionals, whether it's yoga, they can tell by how someone's standing where the issues are in the body. Like you develop that level of skill. Yeah. And truly, if you can do that, finance is a breeze. Seriously, people.
So what was that moment in your career where you knew that you could turn your skill set into a business?
I think it was when it's when someone actually said to me, Ingrid, can you teach me how to do this? Like, I was doing it for them. I was, when I left the corporate world, I'd been in the corporate world and I was in the training and development area, and there was some rounds of redundancies and things. And I was, given a redundancy and told to pack my bags and go. And I sort of had a year of not really sure what I was going to do. And I tried a few different things. And then a friend of mine said, Ingrid, can you come and be our bookkeeper? And I was really surprised because I hadn't done any kind of that nitty gritty accounting for a long time. And she said, well, you've got to be, I said, I'm not sure if I could do that. And she said, well, you've got to be better than what we've had. So with that, I took that up. So I did some done for you bookkeeping and accounting and cash reconciliations and things. And then as I was doing it, I was showing the business people how it worked for themselves. Now, I'd done a lot of that in the corporate world where I'd shown people how to interpret reports and understand what the data was telling them about the sections in their business. And as I started to do that for some of the small businesses, somebody said, Ingrid, can I just get someone else to do what you're doing? And could you teach me how to do this? And I thought, that's what I'm good at. I'm good at teaching people and showing people how it works. And that's when I thought, when someone asked me and they said, could you teach me this? Like, could you teach us this? I think it's that idea of being able to show someone rather than doing it for them. Yeah. What's that? Teaching people to fish? Yeah.
So you care so deeply about people, it's a very genuine thing. But when you see people, what's that come from? When you see people succeeding, and I think especially around women and money mindset, where do you think that comes from?
I think it comes from the fact that you can really see the difference it makes. So I'll give you an example. A woman I worked with last year had many years been running her own business, reasonably successful, paying herself the way the business was set up with the family trust and things. She never really understood how she got money, but she had her own money. And then we started working together and we looked at some of the reports and we mapped out how her timetable would work and what her pricing could be. And she sent me an email a couple of weeks later, and she's a smart woman. She had a career in another area, and now she was working in Pilates. She sent me an email, and she said, "Ingrid, I have never been able to have a conversation with my husband about money." And she said, "Now I feel like I can have a conversation as an equal." And she said, the bookkeeper and the accountant always bamboozle me. And I look at the reports and I toss them aside because I don't even know what I'm looking for. I don't know what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
And she said, that's the difference you've made. And I think that's the difference that it makes to people. So I know how you feel and how the listeners feel when they work with someone and they change their body and the body responds the way it does.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about the business owners I work with and how they respond when they understand finance. I think it's very similar. And I tried to do health. I tried to do massage, but I couldn't actually touch people. So that was part of it. So my way of supporting everybody is to actually help you do the business better. And then you can do what I can't do for clients.
So if someone was starting a fitness studio or a yoga studio, what's the first kind of piece of advice you might give them?
Is just get really clear about how much it's going to cost and how you're going to make that money. Like, just really understand what the costs are involved and
The expenses.
how the expenses are. And, there's lots of little hidden ones. There's the insurance, and then there's the rent, and then the rent goes up, and there's, the cost of the internet, and there's the cost of all the different bits and pieces that are, that are there. And the website, and then the registering the website name, and there's, so really getting a handle on what all the expenses might be, and looking realistically at how much that is. And you go, oh, the insurance is $800 a year. But what does that mean in terms of clients? When the rent is this much a week or this much a day, bring it back to how many clients do you actually need to have in order to pay for those expenses? And how much do you need to pay yourself? Because if you're earning a salary and you want to replace that, add in that. So how much do you need to make a day? So that how many clients is that? So if you need $1,000 a week, then how much do you have to charge how many clients to get that $1,000 every week? Yeah, do the maths.
When I had my studio, when I had my studio, I worked it out how much each class cost me to put on, and so I knew that 8 participants covered costs. That was not profit. But I knew that, of a space that could hold 30 people, I knew 8 people covered my costs. And for me, that was a really good way, because then I could it was a simple way to make decisions on classes, whether that class was making money or losing money, because the small pieces add up to the big piece, right? The big picture. And so I literally brought it down to how much each class cost. Have you worked that way with people?
Yeah. So if you know that every class has to have 8 people, then if you've got a class that has 6 people, then you know that you're losing money on that class. So then where do you make that up? Do you charge 6 people more money, or do you have to have 10 people in another class or 12 people in another class? And that's what I meant about getting it down to how much per day, how much per class, how much per week, how many clients, and how much do you need to charge them?
So there's over the last year in particular, there's been a whole bunch of new business owners coming alive, which are a lot of displaced teachers that were in studios, and due to COVID, they were working less, and I've been working with a whole bunch of them, and they've kind of figured out that they can do it themselves. And so it's a very fun process to work with those people. So what advice would you give to a solo person, financial advice to a solo person starting a business?
So the solo person isn't going to be hiring a studio. Is that what you mean when you talk about a solo? They're going to be doing something online?
Either online or in person by themselves, or renting a studio or outdoors. Yeah,
I wouldn't change the advice to a solo, but I would give an example. So a number of years ago, I met a woman who had started a yoga business, and she had been in the business for about 4 or 5 years. And she said to me, because we talked about yoga and how much we loved it, And she said, if I never see another downward dog, I could care less. And I think one of the things that I would say to anybody starting a business in any field is that sometimes what can happen is when it becomes a business, you may lose the love of the thing you love. And I really caution people about that and there's a beautiful book by Elizabeth Gilbert called Big Magic. And, Elizabeth Gilbert is the writer, and she believes deeply in creativity. And she says in the book, do not expect your creativity to pay the bills. And so what I would say to the solo who's been used to being in someone else's studio is that maybe think about, do you need the yoga to pay your bills? And how are you going to get that balance right? Because will you lose the love of yoga because of the business aspect of it? I wouldn't ever put anyone off doing it, but I think there's a balance to be had there in, do you want yoga to have the responsibility of paying your bills?
I love that, because I've been there. When I had the studio for 13 years, I survived 2 recessions. And during that survival time, which it was survival time, and fake it till you make it, to get through to the other side, I did stop. I was teaching, but I was not practicing, and I lost the love of yoga. I did find it again, but it was because it was solely focused on the business, and that you lose your why and your purpose, which I think is so important to keep that. And working with yoga studios, I see the same thing. Like I see the exact same thing that I went for. And I think what you're saying here is if you keep that passion and the focus, the money will sort of show up, right? If you have that focus and that love for it. But if it's clearly that you are not loving it, that comes across.
Yes. And if you're fearful about the money, then that does come across, because then it takes away the love of what you're actually doing. It's very, very difficult to truly serve and love and stay attached to your why when you just don't know how you're going to pay the rent this week.
Yeah. What advice, so over, talking about over the last year, we've gone from businesses that were thriving with, let's say, 30 people in a studio, and they're down to 6 or 8 people, possibly in a limited capacity, or what's happening in Australia right now, complete lockdowns. We've been I think you are going through what we've been through here. You're just like a year delayed from what we've been through, right? And so you've been able to watch what is going on in the rest of the world before it comes to you. So with that limited capacity comes the limited ability to make income. Any thoughts around that, of how people can sort of survive those times?
Yeah. So I've always loved what I call the hairdresser model. And, I have curly hair. It probably doesn't apply to you, Michael, but there'll be people listening who it will apply to.
So I used to have lovely waves.
So I have curly hair, and, anyone can cut hair. But to have your hair cut by someone who truly understands how curl works and to give you the look that you want, cut after cut after cut, is a premium. And so I go to a hairdresser that charges a premium, certainly not a high-end premium. But if you think about the hairdresser, you go to a salon, and, there's some hairdressers that are at this end of the spectrum, and there's some hairdressers that are at that end of the spectrum. And why do people go to the premium hairdresser? Why do they go to the one that is, is it because you get the glass of champagne? Is it because you're the only person in the studio when you're getting your hair done and you get the absolute attention? Or is it a frantic place where you don't even make an appointment and you just stand in the queue and you get your hair done? Now, they can cut hair too. I mean, they're really good cutters, and they're really good at color, and they're really good at, but it's a different experience. So what I would say to someone in this environment is, what is it that you're doing to make the connection with your customers and to make your yoga, particularly, people who are listening about yoga or Pilates or whatever your wellbeing business is, what is it you're doing to make it unique? What is that level of connection? What is the distinction that you're making that makes you stand out, that allows you to be a premium product, service? Right. And I think that's the thing for people, is that, anyone can pay $10 a month for whatever it is that, is out there. There's plenty of that. But what is it that you're able to do that really makes a difference for your clients? Because when you do that maths, you don't need a lot of them. And if you have the right pricing, then you don't need a lot of clients. But what you do for each client is bespoke.
Right. So the yoga mat space becomes more expensive.
Yes. Well, that is one way of doing it. And it's more expensive because what you're providing is a more premium product service / service.
So do you think, if I know a lot of studios that have substantially increased their prices, do you think when we're all through this and we're back to full capacity that they'll put the prices back?
Maybe.
It's going to be an interesting thing to kind of watch.
Well, and one of the other things that so I'm working with a client currently in Sydney. Now, Sydney's slightly different in the last couple of weeks, but she put her prices up twice in the last 6 months for this very reason.
Yeah.
And when she went to her clients and she said, look, if you want to work with me, this is what it is. This is the pricing for the other parts of the studio. And her client said, about jolly time. Like, it's about time you put your prices up. Right. And so, I think it's very easy to get caught in people won't pay. But there's a lot of people in the community who still have their jobs, who still have their corporate salaries, who still have the ability to pay for things that they truly value. And the difference that feeling physically well in this environment makes is priceless for people.
Yeah, I say this on a daily basis with my clients, that people will pay for a solution to a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Absolutely. And at the moment, if you're the thing that makes people feel connected, if you're the part of their life that makes them feel like they're escaping from whatever it is, if you're whatever that is that you're giving them, that time on the mat they're there for a reason. And the more you can understand why someone is on the mat and tailor what you're doing for that, the more premium it becomes.
Yeah. And what you in our pre-chat before we started recording, you had mentioned that you have a client as well that you encourage to save, and which has saved her through the lockdown. Can you just share that?
Yeah. So I worked with a group of studio owners last year, and one of the things that became really apparent as we went through a previous lockdown was that people just didn't have any money in a buffer. And so we talked about how important it is to develop a buffer, whether it's to pay rent or whether it's to, pay other sorts of costs or expenses. And we've just gone into a lockdown here, and she emailed to say, I'm not feeling as frantic as everybody else because I've managed in the last few months to save 4 months worth of rent. Yeah. And so that puts her in a really strong position to kind of ride out whatever happens. Yeah. And if she gets some rent relief or she gets some top up from the government, then that's a bonus. But she's not feeling that desperate franticness that comes with, holy moly, there's nothing left in the bank.
Yeah, because this has culled a lot of the weaker business people, right? The people that didn't have a business mindset. And I know, you and I are in the Mindbody One community quite a lot. And I've said this before, but what I did see in the beginning of all of this was it was driving me crazy looking on Instagram at everybody doing their free classes on Instagram and YouTube and just giving it away for free. But then in the Mindbody community, there was something that happened with that peer-to-peer support. And everybody went, stop, don't cancel the memberships. Don't cancel the memberships. Your clients will stick with you. And so there was this major support of each other that I really think saved a lot of businesses, with everybody kind of banding together and going, no, we're not going to just give everything away for free. I mean, I believe you can give away stuff for free for promotion, but you cannot save your business by giving everything away for free.
No, you can't. To give it away for free in this environment, to give a bonus something for free or to have an attraction campaign for free is one thing. But once you set up that free, it's very hard to come back from that, because people expect that. Just to that point about the subscriptions. So because things stopped suddenly here, I saw some discussion amongst some different clients saying that they had cancelled the subscriptions for their clients because they weren't able to come into the studio and they weren't going to. So like my husband's in a gym and they had to close the gym because gyms aren't allowed to be open. Yeah. And they immediately cancelled the subscriptions. And he said, but I would happily keep paying it because I want them there. Yeah. And this is his words. I want them to be there when we get out of this. And how are they going to pay for things while they don't take our money? Yep. And so there are clients who will happily pay, even if they're not using the service, because they want you to be there when this is over.
So and I saw that a lot.
People need to know, people really, like some people can't. Their income might disappear, or they might have their own personal circumstances why they wouldn't pay. But there are a lot of people who will continue to support that business because they want it to be there when this is over.
That's their community.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or when it gets to the next stage. I don't think it's ever going to be over, but when it gets to the next stage, that's whatever that is. Oh, dear.
So, well, I'm just going to end here with a few fun questions, Ingrid. I want you to tell me something that most people don't know about you.
These were hard questions, Michael. So I come across as very extroverted. I'm very friendly. I'm very open. But in my true deep self, I actually have a very, I actually am quite introverted in some ways. Yeah. Not in my thought process, but I'm actually a very private person. Yep. Yeah. And so there's a very introverted side of me.
I can completely relate to that. I absolutely relate to that. Do you have, for your business, a favorite business tool, app, or website that you can't live without?
I'm going to say my website, my WordPress website, because it's a practical thing as well. I love the socials, and I use Xero for bookkeeping and Excel and different things, but I think the website is the asset of a business, because that's what is your home. And for someone who doesn't have a bricks and mortar, that is my business home, my actual website. Yeah.
I would dare to say LinkedIn for you as well.
Well, it is of the socials of that. Yeah. If you hadn't put website in there, I would have said LinkedIn, because I do think LinkedIn is my community space. That's where I like to be.
Everybody should look Ingrid up on LinkedIn, because she's very active on there. That's kind of her social community. You'll find me on Instagram. You'll find Ingrid on LinkedIn mostly. And do you have a favorite personal app or website?
Well, Michael, you introduced me to Instagram, I have to say. And
really?
I do quite like having a little look there. I don't do anything on Instagram. I do have a look. But
you like to be a voyeur.
I like to see pretty things, and I think the thing I love about Instagram is it's quite fun. It's always positive and that. Yeah. But we have solar panels on our roof, and I'm such a geek. I actually love our solar app. We've got a little app, and you can press it at any time of day, and it tells you how much sunshine is creating, how much electricity, and how much we've used in the house. Yeah, so that's actually, away from the social media things, I actually love my little solar app. You
sit there and watch a solar app for entertainment. Right, Ingrid, if you enjoy Instagram, I'm going to encourage you to go and have a little play on TikTok.
Oh, no, I'm not going in there.
I said the same thing. And if you're in a down mood, it will lift you up. I sit there and laugh for an hour. Actually, I'll be honest here. Sometimes I'll be on there and I'll look up and go, "Oh my God, it's midnight." Like, it's like time can fly when you're on there, but it's super entertaining, like super, super fun and entertaining. Anyway,
I'll with caution head in that direction.
I want to also, before we get your contact information, I do want to give a shout out to your book. So Ingrid has a book, which is So You Can Start a Business. Is that correct?
So you want to start a business.
So you want to start a business.
Are we visual as well as audio?
Yeah, we're both visual and will be audio. Yeah.
So you want to start a business, and it's available wherever you buy your books. Thank you, Michael. Pretty much every day someone in the world buys a book, which is quite fun. Well, but if you've got a local independent bookstore, support your local independents and get them to get you a copy. But if that's not easy, it's online everywhere.
And I have a client in Toronto, a studio client, that she got hooked into you via me, and she bought 3 copies of your book.
I know. And I'm so grateful.
two of them were for people that she thought could really use it. So yeah, it's such a great thing that you've put out there. And the other thing that Ingrid has under the same name is a fantastic podcast. And you've been doing that for a while. And I was a guest a couple of months ago, I think, on there as well.
Yeah, just a few episodes back. Yeah.
Yeah. So you think you can start a business. How long have you been doing that?
Well, I've been doing it for 5 years, but I've had little breaks here and there a couple of times. Michael, you're episode number 155.
Okay.
Just so you know.
That was a fun chat.
If anybody wants to go listen to that. I've been doing it. So you can see I'm up to the 150, about to launch episode number 160. It's a great podcast talking to people about getting started in their business.
Yeah, I think it's a great podcast, so people should definitely check that out. And then finally, Ingrid, how do people find you?
My website is healthynumbers.com.au, and you could go there, go to LinkedIn, Ingrid Thompson. And if you wanted to just send me an email, ingrid@healthynumbers.com.au, and I answer all my own emails. I don't have somebody doing my emails for me.
Well, I want to thank you, because I think that finances in business is such an important thing. A lot of people think of it as a dry, kind of boring thing, but you make it fun. And I've taken your webinars before where you've talked about profit. And so I encourage anybody that needs to really look into their finances and studio finances and needs a little bit of help with that, definitely give Ingrid a shout, because she's my favorite numbers girl.
Thank you. Thanks. And there's tons of resources on the website. And as we said, Michael, if you're someone who has got the body and the bones and the muscles, and you've got the anatomy and the physiology, then the numbers, you've already got numbers going on in your...
Ingrid, you sent me a copy of it. I was going to sign off here, but I just remembered that you sent me this great interview, the questionnaire thing that gives the health check. Yeah, the health check of your finances. Yeah.
Yes. I don't have an easy link for that. You've just
how about you send me the link? I'll put it in the show notes.
Perfect. Yes. Yeah. So there's your business finances health check. It's a simple 15 questions, and it gives you a really good idea of where you are in terms of a health check financially for your business. They're simple questions. Yes, no, you know the answers. It'll take a minute to work through them.
It's pretty great. It's kind of like artificial intelligence. And
and it gives you a report based on what you say for each of the different answers.
Yeah. I love the fact that you're up on all this stuff. Of course.
Well, I need to have an easy link for that one that we just go, health check or something like that.
Yeah.
I'll work on that one. Thank you.
Yeah, but you're welcome. And anyway, I'm going to say thank you very much, Ingrid. I think you rock. And thanks for being my guest today.
Thanks so much for having me. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Thank you. This is Yoga Biz Camp. This is my new by invite only dedicated space to support yoga businesses. It's like Facebook, but without all the noise and clutter. Here you will find all my resources, including free monthly fireside chat business question and answer time with myself, and along with all of my different communities, from studios to solos to the inner circle. Here you'll find guest interviews with leaders in our industry, and as well as all of my free resources, all in one dedicated space. If you're ready to become the next Yoga Biz champ and get private invite into my free community support space, go to yogabizcamp.com, click on Yoga Biz Camp, and I will see you on the inside. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on our podcast. It really helps us out a lot. Thanks a million.